In the ruthless world of crime, survival isn't promised, power is fleeting, and trust is a myth. Simone Jasmine, the Queen of the South, ruled the Durban underworld with an iron grip, outmaneuvering enemies and building a drug empire that raked in millions. But even the most feared can be hunted. On one fateful night in October 2020, she stepped into an Uber, unknowingly walking into an ambush. Within seconds, gunfire echoed through the night. The Queen had fallen. But was the rival gang a betrayal from within, or a final strike from law enforcement that sealed her fate? This is the gripping rise and brutal downfall of a woman who dared to rule a man's world. A reign of power and fear. In the shadowy underbelly of Wentworth, Durban, Simone Jasmine, better known as the Queen of the South, carved a fearsome reputation as a dominant force in the drug trade. While her family vehemently denied her involvement in organized crime, those familiar with the streets knew her story well. Her influence stretched far and wide, commanding respect, fear, and ultimately, lethal opposition. On a fateful evening in October 2020, Simone Jasmine walked toward an Uber taxi, unaware that this would be her final journey. Just as she entered the vehicle, the passenger door flung open once more, and within seconds, her fate was sealed. Gunshots shattered the night, cutting short the life of one of Durban's most notorious female crime bosses. This is the tale of Simone Jasmine, a woman who rose to the top in a ruthless world but met a brutal end. Humble beginnings and a path to power. Simone Jasmine was born and raised in Wentworth, a suburb of Durban. She grew up in the barracks, a notorious block of flats where crime and gang activity dictated the rhythm of life. From an early age, she observed the intricate workings of the streets, learning the hierarchy that governed the criminal world around her. Her introduction to the underworld came through a romantic relationship with a man affiliated with a prominent local gang. He was a street dealer, involved in the distribution of narcotics, and through him, Simone learned the trade's inner workings. However, tragedy struck when her partner was gunned down by a rival gang. This event changed her forever. Rather than retreating, she stepped forward, assuming control over his operations, and making a bold move establishing her own organization, the Cartel. No longer content with serving under a larger criminal network, she sought absolute control. Building an empire. With a newfound ruthlessness, Jasmine expanded her drug operations aggressively. She seized control of multiple selling points, forcefully removing rival dealers and eliminating threats that stood in her way. Under her leadership, the cartel became the dominant force in the barracks, and she solidified her reputation as one of the most formidable figures in Durban's criminal landscape. Much of her strategy was influenced by the hit television series Queen of the South, from which she took inspiration. Like the show's protagonist, she aimed to dominate not just her local territory, but to create an extensive drug network that supplied narcotics on a wholesale level. Her operations soon stretched beyond Wentworth, reaching areas such as Lamanville, Amazi, and Kwamashu. With an estimated revenue of 200,000 Rand per week, Jasmine had transformed into a criminal mastermind. Enemies on all sides. However, success in the underworld comes with an ever-growing list of enemies. As Jasmine expanded her reach, she encroached upon territories controlled by powerful syndicates. Her presence in Amazi led to confrontations with influential taxi bosses who controlled illicit trades in the region. A temporary truce was established, with Jasmine securing a deal to become their primary supplier. But peace in the criminal world is often fleeting. Shortly after their agreement, tensions flared. A dispute erupted during a drug transaction, culminating in a shootout that left a key figure in the Amazi group dead. This act of violence reignited old feuds, prompting swift and deadly retaliation. A hitman armed with an AK-47 was dispatched to Jasmine's home in the barracks, riddling the building with bullets. Fortunately for her, she was not inside at the time, narrowly escaping death. The threat to her life only intensified as rival gangs saw an opportunity to strike. At the same time, law enforcement began to take a serious interest in her activities. The KwaZulu-Natal anti-gang unit, determined to dismantle her empire, set its sights on bringing her down. Law enforcement strikes back. Despite her growing wealth and influence, Jasmine understood that the police posed a significant risk to her operations. To counter this, she resorted to bribing officers within the Wentworth police station, ensuring her protection. However, unbeknownst to her, the anti-gang unit had already launched an investigation into these corrupt officials. A decisive raid on the Wentworth police station resulted in multiple arrests, exposing the network of corruption and bringing increased scrutiny on Jasmine's empire. Just a week after the raid, her worst fears materialized. Officers stormed one of her safe houses in a tactical operation, catching her and several of her associates off guard. Facing charges including murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder, Jasmine found herself behind bars. Yet, in a surprising turn of events, she was swiftly released on bail. Her quick release raised suspicions within her own organization. Some believed she had struck a deal with the authorities, a suspicion that fractured the cartel from within. Now, even her own people were questioning their allegiance to the Queen. The final days, realizing the danger that surrounded her, Jasmine altered her lifestyle drastically. She stopped using her own vehicles, relying on friends and family to book Uber rides for her. Despite these precautions, her past was catching up with her. On October 28, 2020, she requested an Uber through a relative, instructing the driver to pick her up on Marine Drive, Wentworth. As she approached the vehicle, she noticed another car passing by. A momentary distraction followed as the driver confirmed her identity. Then, in an instant, her world collapsed. The passenger door of the Uber swung open, and an unknown gunman aimed a firearm directly at her. 5 shots rang out, piercing the night air and silencing the Queen forever. Her assassin disappeared into a getaway car, leaving the crime scene in chaos. The woman who had once ruled the drug trade in Durban was no more. Aftermath: a war without a queen. Jasmine's death sent shockwaves through Durban's underworld. Theories about her assassination swirled in the aftermath. Was it the taxi bosses from Amazi, seeking revenge for their fallen comrade? Perhaps rival gangs, eager to reclaim lost territories? Or did her own cartel members, now suspicious of her release, orchestrate the hit? The answers remain elusive. One thing was certain: the power vacuum left by her death triggered an even more violent struggle. Without a central figure to maintain control, factions clashed, igniting a bloodier war than before. The streets of Wentworth and beyond became battlegrounds, proving that in the world of crime, power is never left unclaimed for long. A farewell fit for a queen. Despite the grim circumstances of her demise, Jasmine was given a send-off that reflected her notoriety. Friends, family, and associates gathered along Marine Drive, where a grand motorcade escorted her body home for the final time. Mourners paid their last respects, some seeing her as a leader, others as a cautionary tale of crime's inevitable downfall. Her arrest in September 2020 on multiple charges had marked the beginning of her end. Though briefly free on bail, she never had the chance to regain her throne. The life she had built, the empire she had ruled, and the power she had wielded all crumbled in a hail of gunfire. The Queen of the South had met her brutal fate, leaving behind a legacy of crime, power, and tragedy. As the dust settled, one thing became clear: while Jasmine's reign had ended, the war she left behind was far from over. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the rise and fall of Simone Jasmine, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. We bring you the most ripping real-life crime stories, gang rivalries, and underworld mysteries. Stay tuned for more.